Wow, that is kind of ugly. I didn't really have a better way to connect this 6-gauge wire together, so I just had to solder it. But yeah, I had to heat it up so much that I kind of melted the crap out of the insulation. Yes, but I'll put some heat shrink over it and some electrical tape so nobody will be able to tell. Boom, triple insulated. That looks better. Are you kidding me? I made the positive wire barely long enough. Really? Why is it doing that? Alright, let's see if this works. So the ignition is off and it's not getting any voltage. Turn the ignition on and it's now getting 12 volts. Nice. So I wanted to hook this stuff up in such a way where the power steering, the winch, can only be turned on if the ignition is on. So I had to find a wire somewhere in this wiring harness that gets 12 volts when the ignition is turned on. I hooked it up to this relay, and then this relay is hooked up to this. It'll hook up the power steering and the winch controls to this, so therefore it can only turn on when the ignition is on. Now, originally I hooked it up to this wire. This is actually for the hazard lights. It was originally getting 12 volts, a steady 12 volts. But I guess when I put a load on it, it triggered the whatever relay that turned on the flashing. So yeah, that didn't work. I had to find another wire. I actually found this little brown wire that's for the tail lights. So that gets a steady 12 volts. And that now works. So nice. So now, instead of having to flip a toggle switch to turn on the power steering, it should turn on when the ignition is on. Alright, that should be hooked up now. Nice. You can hear this click on. And there it is. Nice. We got power steering. Alright, just hooked up the radiator fan. Let's test to see if that's working. Ignition on. Nice. And it should turn off if the ignition's off. Yep. Nice. Now, I also hooked up the coolant temperature gauges. That is cool. Now there are two of them. This one is measuring the temperature of the coolant coming out of the engine, and then this one is measuring the temperature of the coolant going back into the engine, just so I can make sure that coolant is flowing and the radiator is doing its job. So I'm really curious what this engine's gonna sound like without the baffles in the mufflers, because we've heard what this thing sounds like with the baffles on the inside, and it's a little bit, it's quiet, but I'm curious what it's gonna sound like without them. So first we're gonna fire it up with them still in place, and then we're gonna fire it up with them removed to kind of just compare the different sounds. Yeah, and I had to drag this thing outside because the exhaust on this engine just smells awful. It just sounds like a regular motorcycle. Yeah, not that loud at all. Is that it? I guess that's it. Wow, just that little piece. I mean, it's actually not that big of a baffle. I was expecting a tube with a bunch of holes drilled into it, so this may not actually make that much of a difference.
It's actually not that much of a difference. I mean, it's a little bit louder, but I think it sounds better. I may leave those out. While it's out here, I want to test the clutch pedal to see if I need to adjust it at all. Let's try it high range. Let me try that again. Yeah, I definitely need to adjust the clutch pedal to be a lot less sensitive. So, which is not hard. I just need to shorten that thing. This thing feels like a boat. Let me try low range. So low range on this feels like kind of similar gearing to medium range on the CBR. So this may have too high of gearing. I mean, because we have four-wheel drive, I want this to where low range is crawling, you know, crawling up a hill. And right now, low range in first gear, it's actually pretty fast. I need to figure out what that noise is as I'm moving and fix that, because that's annoying. Yeah, I need to adjust the clutch pedal, but it works. It drives, it works, it moves, there's some noises, there's some changes we have to do, but that's obvious, you know, it's a homemade vehicle. So I'm just going to shorten this lever by as much as possible, and we'll see if that makes it any better. Alright, let's see if that made a difference. Oh wow, it got a lot easier to push this thing in. Definitely a little bit better. We still have all this movement, which is not doing much. Nice. Nice, that worked. It's not perfect, but it's definitely way better. So I'm almost thinking we have to change the gearing on this, because even low range on this kind of seems a bit fast. It kind of seems like it's really similar to medium range on the CBR 1000. So here's a good test. I'm going to put this thing in low range, four-wheel drive, and I want to see if it can climb, not over, but at least on top of this small pile of wood. If it can't do that in low range without killing the engine or me having to heavily slip the clutch, I think we really need to change the gearing on this. So I first want to try in two-wheel drive just to see what it'll do, because who knows, maybe it'll do it in two-wheel drive. So here's the key. Here it is. All right, low range. Here we go. Shift to four-wheel drive. Low range. Four-wheel drive activated. Lock the hubs. Alright, four-wheel drive should be activated. Here we go. Let's turn the radiator fan on. but it almost made it. Let's try a different angle. This thing's fun. I mean, so it is working. It's just I'm having to. It's really bogging the engine down a lot to even do this. So. This thing's fun.
Alright, that was a pretty good first test of this thing that kind of exposed a couple things we have to improve on this. The first thing being the gearing. Now, while yes, it did make it up those logs, it definitely wasn't easy for the engine. It definitely had to let the clutch slip a lot, and it definitely had to rev the engine to like 4,000 or 5,000 RPM just to not kill the engine, and it still really struggled the engine when I let the clutch out fully. So for this vehicle being four-wheel drive, big tires, I want low range being low, so therefore we can kind of crawl over that stuff. Because that wasn't even that steep compared to some of the stuff that you hit on trails at Windrock, and I want this thing to be really good at trails at Windrock. And trust me, because I know some of you guys are going to be like, no, don't make it slower. You just need to learn to use let the clutch slip. But for an off-road four-wheel drive vehicle where you want low range, you want low gearing, I'm trying to compare this to the CBR 1000 buggy because that thing's plenty fast enough and the gearing is pretty good on that thing. This first gear, low range on this feels really similar to medium range first gear on the CBR 1000. So I think the gearing in this is a little too fast. So, it just so happens I still have this sprocket. This is a 33 tooth sprocket with the 4 keyways still in place because this is actually the same sprocket that used to be on the CBR, but then we changed it to a 22 tooth sprocket. This right now is a 22 to make the CBR a little bit faster, but the CBR has smaller tires and a little bit different gearing between the engine and the secondary transmission, so I think that's why this vehicle is, different gearing than the CBR. So, what we're going to do is, all I have to do is disassemble the entire rear suspension, so therefore I can take the jack shaft off, to take this sprocket off and swap it out with this one. Now, another thing I really want to improve on this is the chain tensioner in between the engine and secondary transmission. Now, I kind of really underestimated how obnoxiously loud this little sprocket would be. And I know some of you guys were commenting about using a skateboard wheel in the last video of this project, so I actually have this. This is a longboard skateboard wheel, so it's a little bit softer material.
I think this is going to be a lot better and a lot quieter than this obnoxiously loud little thing.
Alright, hopefully that's going to be a lot quieter. Alright, so I want to test the new gearing to see what it will do now. Alright, let's first do low range. That's low range. That is a lot better. That is a lot better. Wow. Let's try medium range. Still gonna be fast, trust me. Alright, I kinda wanna see if it'll do a medium range burnout. Wow. Wow. Try that again. Holy crap. Let's see if it'll do it in high range. On my dirt. Okay, no more doing that. No more doing that. I am tearing up my yard. I may want to add fenders because I just got showered with dirt. Yeah, the gearing is 10 times better. I can easily accelerate. Trust me, this thing's still gonna be plenty fast. I mean, we're still in only first gear of the motorcycle transmission. So my first temperature gauge is just climbed to 139, while my second temperature gauge is still at 74. I need to make sure the water pump on this is working properly. I'm really almost wondering if we're having water pump issues on this because anytime. Now, let me just quickly summarize what I spent a day and a half filming just to kind of help speed this video along so it's not an extra 10 minutes long. So I was noticing that 2 of the 3 temperature gauges were getting up to temperature properly, but the third one wasn't. The temperature gauge measuring the coolant going back into the engine only went up about 10 or 15 degrees, even though we've been driving this thing for about 10 minutes. I also noticed that the radiator was barely warm, even though the engine was super hot. So that kind of tells me that coolant just isn't flowing properly, which is not good. So first, I just wanted to verify that the coolant pump on this engine wasn't broken, so I took the cover off. I started the engine up quickly just to make sure that, yes, the coolant pump is spinning with the engine. I also checked the thermostat to make sure it's opening up properly at the proper temperatures, and it is. I looked for any blockages in the coolant line to see if maybe that's an issue, and I couldn't find anything. So I'm pretty sure it's just simply that this coolant pump on this engine just doesn't have enough power to move the coolant all the way up to the radiator in the front and all the way back, which I kind of had a feeling that this could be an issue. So what I could do to solve this issue is simply just install an external electric coolant pump towards the radiator, or I could do what I've been kind of wanting to do for the last couple videos now, and that's just moving the radiator to the back.
I think that'll just solve multiple issues on this project if we just move the radiator to the back. But that's kind of an issue that we can't solve in this video, so we're just gonna have to save that for the next video of this project. So yeah, I don't think we should be running this engine for long periods of time anymore until we are able to fix the radiator and hopefully fix this issue. So let's put this stuff back together. I'll put coolant back in here so I can run it for a little bit more, and let's work on something else. Alright, so in case these chains ever decide to fly off, this should protect the driver and passenger, in case that ever happens. Alright, so I don't think it'll hurt the engine if we run this thing for just a little bit more. I really want to test, again, crawling on the wood pile to compare the old gearing versus the new gearing, just so we can compare the differences. So I won't run it for very long, and I'll keep an eye on temperatures. Alright, let's see what this thing can do. Now I did tighten up the preload on the front shocks by a lot, so it should be sitting higher. Alright, four-wheel drive. And the new chain tensioner is way quieter. Oh yeah, that made it up no problem. Barely bogged the engine down. Hit it this way to see if I can climb on top of it, because right now it's just, I'm getting on it and I'm just high centering. So let me move the cameras. Alright, we'll see if this works. I may just high center and spin tires, but I want to see if it'll do it. See if I can get a little bit more this way. Hang on, what was that noise? Oh, dang. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. So, I mean, it didn't snap. It just fell off. I'm really curious what happened. That camera right there should have been able to pick up what happened. I wonder if it just loosened up, because I haven't tightened these yet since these chains have stretched. So maybe it was just too loose and just slipped off the sprocket. I don't know. I wonder if a log hit the sprocket and just forced the chain off. Well, let me put it back on and try again. So I actually see a little bit of bark on this side of the sprocket, so I think a log just hit this and pushed the chain off. So yeah, that's one design that's, I'll be honest, not great on this setup, is these sprockets are heavily exposed to rocks, to, you know, hitting stuff. So at least it's an easy fix. All right, chain's back on. It is a bit loose, so I probably should tighten it. That probably would help, but let's try that again. All right, take two. I want to try to get it to where it's at least level, because last time it was pretty leaning over a lot. So let's try again. Finally, this wood pile is actually being useful. Does that count? I'm not really on top of it, but oh, that was really close to my camera. Oh, God, I did not run that over. I'm gonna watch where I'm going. There we go. There we go. I finally built a semi-capable off-road four-wheel drive machine. All right, it took enough pictures. Let's get this thing down. Yes, I'll admit, in four-wheel drive, steering is a little hard when you're stationary. Once you're moving, it gets easier.
Alright, we finally got to see this thing actually moving and doing something and climbing something. It's a small step, but we're working towards actually being able to take this thing on its first actual off-roading test drive. But now, I think the gearing on this is almost perfect. I still need to drive it and get it in the higher gears to really see what this thing's, you know, capable of and all that kind of stuff. But I do think the new gearing of this is a lot better because, yeah, it doesn't make sense to have low range if it's not low range because we have all these other, I mean, we have 18 other gears going faster, and what we were in was the lowest gear possible. So we definitely want that as low as possible because, like I keep saying, four-wheel drive, big tires, we want low range for four-wheel drive. Now, I don't think I've already said this, but I did measure the gearing, the new gearing of this, in between the motorcycle output sprocket and the tires. I don't remember what it used to be before I changed the gearing, but the new gearing on this is low range is 17-1, medium range is 9.5-1, and high range is 6-1. So, if you guys want to calculate for me the theoretical top speed of this thing in high range with 32-inch tires, 6-1 gearing, it's a Gen 1 Hayabusa. If you guys would like to calculate the theoretical top speed of this thing, that'd be awesome because I tried to figure it out and I couldn't figure it out. Math is not my strong suit, but now yes, one of the sprockets did fall off, but I don't think it was because we were putting too much strain on it. I think it was because like a log may have pushed. I don't know. I did see some marks on the sprockets and some bark that had rubbed off. So I'm hoping that's what it was. That just a log pushed the chain off. I don't know. One of the cameras hopefully caught it. What happened? Also, I haven't tightened these chains since they stretched because they are brand new chains. Now, the reason I've been working on this thing so much is because I'm trying to get this thing ready for a Durham town trip, and because I'm actually leaving, it's around a month, so I have 4 weeks to get this thing ready, and I really want to have this to where it's not completely finished, but I'd love it if the doors were in place. I'd love it if all the panels were installed. It'd be nice if I had previously, you know, tested this thing to make sure nothing's wrong or broken or needs fixed and all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to get this thing to the point where it's not finished, but, you know, rideable and panels are installed and all that kind of stuff for the Durham town trip. But in the meantime, I do want to start painting the reverse trike. I was supposed to paint it this week, but I decided to work on this just because I need to test this thing to make sure that everything's working properly, so therefore I can fix stuff before the Durham town trip. But anyway, guess that's it for this video. Don't forget, new merchandise, new t-shirt logos, and stickers. Links in the description below for that. Definitely go check that out. But guess that's it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see ya in the next video.